Hello, everybody. This is John Marola from Keeping It Real Section 5 Football, and this is our 11th episode. And Paul and I are just moving right along, and we're very, very, very excited today to have our special guest in today. But first, I have to introduce my partner over to the right, Section 5 Hall of Famer, Paul Brigandy.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks. And our two guests. Like I said, this one means a lot to me. We were just talking a little earlier about, my experience with Fairport, East Rochester, and we'll get into that. First of all, on my right, far right, is former coach from Fairport, Dave Lanning. Coach, thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, John. Thank you.
All right. And the man next to me is a guy that I remember, like I said, when I was probably in fifth grade, and just loved the Fairport East Rochester battles back in the day. And that's Coach Quinn from East Rochester. Coach, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, John.
Right. Paul, you want to start off?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to have both fantastic coaches with great history here with us today. And I want to start out, and it doesn't matter who wants to answer this first question, but I'd like to ask you, how did you decide to get into teaching and coaching? And when was it during your career where that decision was being made?
Well, I knew early on I wanted to coach. I'm talking about like sixth grade.
Okay.
When we had intramural basketball, and I sort of coached that team, made the lineup out. I thought, this is something I want to do when I'm done playing. And of course, I had some great role models growing up in East Rochester. Nick Urzetta, who was my Little League baseball coach. Later on, when I entered high school, Coach Quinn, of course, football, baseball coach too, my first couple of years, and John Baines and a whole bunch of people in East Rochester. So I knew the direction I wanted to head into, play as long as I could, and then coach.
And Coach Quinn?
Okay, now mine could be lengthy, and we're going to try to shorten it down because I was not very excited in grammar school. And then I went to high school and found out I was a pretty good athlete. And I wanted to get married when I got out of high school. And my high school coach said to me, he said, "You got to go to college." I said, "College?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not going to college." He said, "Well, I'm going to apply at the school I went to." And I said, "Well, you can apply, but I'm most likely not going to go." So anyhow, going to the steel mills for a couple of weeks, that changed my mind, and I went in there. And of course, now I playing a lot of sports at Cortland, and all of a sudden my year comes up to go out student teaching, and they said, "You got to go out student." I said, "Student teaching? I didn't come here to student teach. I came here to make the Baltimore Colts." So, of course, my girlfriend at the time, who was eventually my wife, she said, "What are you, crazy?" I said, "Yeah." And, of course, I went out student teaching, and it was at Auburn High School, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So somebody kept directing me because I couldn't direct myself.
Oh, very good. If neither of you got into coaching or teaching, was there anything else that you had an interest at that age that you might have went in a different direction at that time? Any decision?
No clue on my part. No, that's pretty much
You knew what you wanted.
I was going in that direction, and like Coach, I had some people that were pointing me in the right way to go. Once I entered college, I went to Brockport, played there. Coach D'Agostino, was pointing us in that direction too.
And Coach Quinn?
No, I didn't have any. The only thing I wanted to do was play pro football, and I thought the Baltimore Colts, because one of the players on the team for 3 years was I played with him in high school, so I thought if he could do it, I could do it. But he was much bigger, much taller, and I didn't make the Baltimore Colts. I did get some letters out to him, but that was it.
Yep, I had that dream as well after college. I had a little look with the Jets, got cut by them, which was a great great move on their part, and that allowed me to come back home and start coaching and teaching.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I want to ask you both. You mentioned Coach Lanning, some of your role models that you had that led you into the coaching direction. How about some of the coaches that you worked with that helped you along the way too when you were first starting out?
Well, when I started out at Fairport, Pete Logan was the head coach, and Pete, I watched him work and his style and learned from it and knew things I wanted to copy and things I wanted to do on my own differently. So it was a great way to start. Um, Don Santini came in a few years later, and I worked with Don. Actually, when he took the head job, I was in the running for it. Don got the job. I thought, you know what, might be time to move on. So I applied over at Pittsburgh, and they were hiring a new coach, and I was in the running there, and decided to back out because I had kids in school at Fairport, and stayed at Fairport, and watched Don work and his style, and same thing. You borrow some things. Yeah, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. So he was a good one. Mike Driscoll came in as an assistant. I had played with Mike in college, and good friends, and loyal coach. And I learned some things from Mike as well. So there were a bunch of people along the way.
Well, for me, I didn't have, when I went to East Rochester, which was my second job, I didn't have anybody there that I knew or to look up to, because I had three gentlemen that were assistants under somebody else. And of course, one was a good golfer, Nick Necarella, and the other one was Tom Connors, who is still kicking around. He's 98. And I had Nate Calabrese, and he was a great football player, but all he wanted to do was race with my players. So I found out I was doing the whole thing. I was doing the line and the back and everything, and it worked out all right. It was a good experience for me because I never played line, but I was in there teaching that, and then I just went to clinics and things like that and learned my way along the line.
I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention John's dad, Tony Marola, when he came to Fairport, and was watching him work and admiring his style. And same thing, borrow and steal and what you can.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Right. Well, absolutely.
Yep.
Coach Lanning, I know you went to East Rochester. You played for Coach Quinn. Tell us a little bit about growing up in East Rochester, some of the sports you played, some of the lessons you learned through Coach Quinn.
Well, growing up, East Rochester is a great place to grow up. It's sounds cliche, but you could walk everywhere. There were parks available to play. We didn't have youth football, so we played in the park after school, tackle football all the time. We did have an organized basketball league and little league, so you played those sports growing up. When Coach Quinn came in 1958, I was in junior high, and we had heard that this new coach had arrived, and he was going to turn things around, and we didn't know what to expect because we were kind of used to, status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And, get to high school as a freshman, and here's this guy running the show now, and he ran the show.
I'm just saying.
And let me emphasize the running part. So, played 4 years of football for Coach as a freshman on the varsity, which was a thrill. You're a backup, but you're there. And then right through my senior year, we had great success. We won the conference 3 years in a row. This is before sectionals, or 3 years out of 4, rather. A wonderful place to grow up, and, still have friends that you went to school with and all that kind of thing. Talk to guys that I played with in high school still. And, wouldn't trade that. I mean, everybody's got their stories, and you all think they're the best.
Yep.
These were good days.
Yeah.
You also a baseball player?
Played basketball and baseball.
Okay.
Again, basketball, we had lots of success. Baseball, not as much. Coach Quinn was the varsity coach my first 2 years, and we were the best conditioned team in Section 5. Coach, can we stop running shuttle runs and take some batting practice? But had played 4 years of basketball and baseball as well. So
Great. And Coach Quinn, you growing up in your high school back in what sports were you involved with, and
Well,
some of your coaches you had?
I was in football. Of course, they didn't have wrestling, which would have been my pick, and baseball. And of course, I was very fortunate because I didn't realize, coming from a Catholic school, I didn't know many of the players or anything like that. It was a small town, but not as small as East Rochester. And lo and behold, I end up starting on the varsity team as a freshman at center field and winning the sectionals 3 years. And in football, I had a great coach that really was like a father to me and directed me along the way and got me to go to college, as I mentioned earlier, and taught me a lot. And then from there on in, it was college coaching that gave me a lot of emphasis on certain things, which I followed, and then off to Bath for a couple of years, and then on to East Rochester, which was a great job for me. I mean, I was a little afraid going there because I was told that you'd have to carry a gun because, and I went up into town and got interviewed. And my wife and I, we drove around, and they all had those little white picket fences around the houses, and gee, I thought it was great. And, the people from Bath had a party for me to have me go, and they told me about this, and I said, well, why? They said, well, we have the paper mill, and we have the car shops, and we have the piano works, and about 95% of them are Italian. They have a shooting there every night. I said, wow. So
Wow.
I was a young guy, and I told my wife, I said, maybe we made a mistake. But we'll find out that it was great the opposites. I mean, it was really a great place for me to grow up with the family, and I've had a lot of good years there.
That's great to hear. Coach Lanning, you played at East Rochester and coached at Fairport.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your first Little Brown Jug game, both as a player and your coaching experience.
Well, of course, we knew about the Brown Jug growing up, and so freshman year, I had a chance to play in it, and we won the ball game. I made a tackle on a kickoff, which was sort of a touchdown saving tackle. After the game, traditionally we had a hayride,
Oh, wow.
and so I was feeling pretty good about myself going to the hayride. I was probably built like a 3-iron then, 120 pounds or whatever, but it was a big deal. I mean, the whole Brown Jug experience, it wasn't just the game; it was all week building up to it. Sophomore year, we won again. Junior year, we got beat. I was hurt that year. I'm pretty sure that's the reason.
It had to be the reason.
Yeah, likely. Anyway, we came back the next year, senior year, and won it again at Fairport. And it was the game itself. You played against kids you knew, guys you knew from Fairport, guys that you had caddied with and had played in the summer ball with, and so on and so forth. So that was always fun. That day, you didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first 15-yard penalty in a Little Brown Jug game.
Wow.
Went downfield and hit a little defensive back. Bobby Porter was his name. Through a forearm, hit him under the chin. A referee named Thurman Bodie, who Coach I'm sure remembers. He was a giant of a man, had the voice of God. He was right next to me. He threw the fight. I said, "Son, you can't do that." Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Bodie. And anyway, so you have some memories of the games, and besides the winning and losing, but it was a thrill to play in the game. Later, now I get hired at Fairport, and the old timers in East Rochester were saying, "How can you go over there?
Right.
Well, how can you? You're a trader. How can?" I said, "Well, fellas, here's the deal. Every 2 weeks they give me a paycheck, and you guys aren't giving me anything, so that part was easy." So went over there, as I said. Pete Logan was the head coach, and I was involved with the program as an assistant. And Yale was having their way in the Little Brown Jug games, but we finally got a win, I think 75 or something like that. And, stayed with the program when Don came. Fairport table started to turn a little bit, and part of it was the growth of Parenton, and Fairport just was outstripping ER in that sense. And eventually the game, it came to an end in '87, just because it couldn't have been competitive. The coach would have made it competitive, but it wasn't fair anymore logistically. So, it was, memories on both sids. As a coach at Fairport, I'm trying to win.
Right now, you're right there.
And, see Coach Quinn on the other side of the field. It's like, all right, I don't care now. We're out here for real.
Yeah.
And Coach Quinn, you come into East Rochester, and what kind of background were they letting you know about this game? And then do you remember your first game? And
I remember my first game, and it was against Leroy. And
Wow.
And of course, they had only, well, my first year I was an assistant, we tied one game, a Rondequoit. And I was really shocked because we opened up with Batavia, who I didn't know anything about Batavia. And of course, my head coach, Johnny Baines, he says, the bus breaks down in Leroy. He says, do you have any sugar? I said, no. He says, oh, you always want to bring sugar. I said, oh, okay. So they send another bus. We go to Batavia, and Bossler, who was a great player and went on to college and I think played some pros, he goes about 80 yards for a touchdown. And then we have a kid that's Seidel, and he goes about 70 yards for a touchdown. So we didn't make the extra point, so it's 7-6. I'm excited. And then, of course, as the game goes on, it's not going very well. And finally, about 3 minutes to go before halftime, Mr. Baines says, would you go in and put some stuff on the blackboard? I don't know what we was going to put on there, but I go in there, and of course, it was underneath the bleachers, and of course, the rats were running all over because the Italians, they don't want to miss a meal, and they had pasta all over. The rats had pasta all over, so I start writing stuff up there, and finish that, go out second half, and of course we end up losing 60-6.
Wow.
So John Bain says, you know where you bring sugar? You put it in the gas tank. I said, I didn't know that. I hadn't learned that technique yet. So,
Coach, what'd you put on the board at halftime? Turn that game around.
I can't remember because I'll tell you, there were rats, so many rats, and they're running around in there. Oh boy, I'll tell you, it was a different thing, and of course, it took us a while to get going. My first year, the next year was tough to win a game because the students and the athletes just didn't have faith in their football ability, and so consequently, lost the first game 7-6, then lost the next game 15-14, and we were ahead 14-0 at halftime. But the kids, they didn't believe it. They're sitting there with their head down. I said, "Hey, we're winning," and of course we lost 15-14. And of course, we play a couple more games. Well, we played Brighton, and of course, Brighton's the team to win, and they win it. But we were right with them up through halftime. It was 7-0, and they didn't beat us very bad. But then we go to the next game, and I think it was at Leroy. And of course, I go out there, and the head coach of Leroy, great guy. And I said, how come you got Mr. Rosetta on the football game? He says, well, he's a good official. I said, I know he's a good official. But I mean, he's from East Rochester. He's a diehard East Rochester guy. I said, I don't want to throw any fires out here, but I don't think that was a good choice. He says, well, I like him. I said, okay, we got him. And we won that game 8-0.
Wow.
Got on the bus, and of course Tom Connors, who I just spoke about, he's guys are like we won the championship. I mean, holy crap, he's got his shirt off and everything, and they're all singing. I said, "What the heck?" And of course, and then from there we went on and beat Canandaigua, and we beat Fairport. And boy, that was a big success. And then from there, we had to decide what we were going to do, and I made a decision that I had to teach confidence and belief. And I said, I know nobody else around here uses any weights. We don't have any weights, but we'll have to go borrow them, steal them from someplace. And we got some weights, and I think we started the weight program, I know in East Rochester, at least 10 years before every other high school. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because as things went on, we were no longer even as far as enrollment with any of the schools. And that gave us, so of course, then the next year we went 6-2, and I think 6-0 and 6-2, and the guys just believed. And I'll tell you, you look at Italians, a lot of them look big, but I'll tell you, I think ours all come. They were Sicilians because they were all little guys, and my nose man many times was 125 pounds, and he also was a guard. That was it. But they were out. They did outquick most people, and we got along like that for quite a while. Of course, we give the JVs some extra playing time sometimes because we get way ahead,
Yep.
and we didn't want to embarrass the other team, so it was a good chance for them. And then, of course, Don Santini comes in, and of course, we beat them pretty bad the first game. I can remember about 35 to I don't know 6 or 8. And of course, after that, Don changed his approach. And when he came on the field, he came on with 65. And we came on with 17 or 18. And then we had about 8 JVs out there, too. And they might have to play because with only 16, 17, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we hung in with them for a while, but then it kept getting bigger and bigger. They're graduating 700, 800, and we're graduating 125. I mean, so I felt that 87 was the time for me to step down. I knew I was going to give up the job, and nobody wanted that job. I mean, we were playing all big schools, Rush Henrietta and all of them, but we always did pretty darn good against all of them, I must admit.
Fantastic. How was the little brown jug transferred? Was it transferred at the end of the game? Was it transferred in an assembly? How did you do that?
Interesting. When it started, now Fairport had played before the Little Brown Jug. In '39, a couple of the local politicians, Ken Courtney and a guy named Bennett and Joe Cummings, got the idea of playing for the Brown Jug. Now, the Brown Jug had been a college rivalry, Minnesota, maybe
Yep.
somebody, I don't remember.
I think Minnesota,
From
Michigan.
Michigan.
Michigan, okay. So let's start doing this. So they started that in '39, and post game, then the mayor of the winning team or the winning town would get a wheelbarrow ride pushed by the losing mayor through across the field, through the town, whatever. Then that was a big deal, of course. Then the parades afterwards and so on. Then the jug would be either exchanged if you had it and lost it in an assembly at the other team's school. And that's how the jug would be transferred or kept through the years.
I remember, was the jug, all right, let's say that you guys played Fairport, or ER1, but Fairport had the jug.
Mm-hmm.
That Monday after the game, there'd be an assembly at the end of the day, and the coach, you or Coach Santini, and the captains would have to come in with the jug and basically present it.
That was humiliating.
It had to be unbelievable because the kids in the school are going crazy because they just got it, and here you are giving it up. it's
And remember, it was a simpler time. There wasn't many things to do.
yeah.
So the student body was excited.
Excited.
They were involved.
Yes.
This was their jug. The original jug was about a foot high, decorated with red, white, and brown ribbons, and had all the scores on it. Yeah, so that was a big deal.
And I just got to say thank you very much. If people are seeing right now, Coach brought in a jug for us to have here, and I'm going to tell you that is never going to leave our table.
Oh, really?
That means, I mean, for people that have been in Rochester, going to a Fairport ER game, at any time during your life, I mean, it's unforgettable. I mean, we were talking earlier about people coming with ladders, and Coach, you were saying there was a Friday night. The game was on Saturday, and people were coming in trying to set their ladders up Friday night.
I couldn't lock the gates until about 8 o'clock because the people kept coming, and then I'd have to go open the gate again. And I said, "Holy mackerel!" They were from both towns too,
Yeah,
Fairport and East Rochester, because the crowd was that big.
Yes.
Pep
They
rallies.
estimate, but it may be a little high. I don't know, but they estimated. And when you look at the Fairport Hill when we used to play over there, they said 8,000 people. Whether that's true, I never counted. I don't
I
know.
bet you there was more than
Yeah,
that.
and even
I
more.
bet you there was more than that.
That's so good.
Pep rallies, a bonfire the night before.
Oh, they always had
Big
the
deal.
right. Wow.
I just wanted to let you guys all know my phone was just ringing. Who do you think it was?
George?
George, you're the host.
Hello to
I'm
George.
going to put him on hold. Actually, I could put him through.
You don't need to do that.
I've been outvoted, ex-dog George. I've been outvoted. Okay, so just so you know.
Coach Quinn, he had such a great wrestling coach career, and a lot of football players were football wrestlers. How did you get started in wrestling coaching and that connection, of those same kids that you had in football, wrestled, and played for you there?
Well, when I went there, they asked me to start a wrestling program, and we did. And of course, near the end of a football season, maybe we had 30 between JVs and everything. Maybe we had 35, 50 guys. And I'd say to Mr. Lanning here, I'd say, Dave, what are you going to do? I'm going to play basketball. Okay, go out there, keep the same attitude. Okay, what are you going to do? I'm going to swim. I said, good. And what are you going to do? I'm going to play basketball. Good. What are you going to do? Nothing. I said, wait a minute. Let me check my chart. We don't have that sport. So the kids would say, well, I can't swim. I can't catch the basketball. So I'm just going to work out. I said, yeah, you're going to work out, but we're going to have wrestling.
Right.
I said, I never wrestled. I said, that's my job. And of course, they came out. I believed in 3 sports for all the kids. And some of those wrestlers, I'll tell you, they were tough as nails. And when I think back today, because of an individual sport, what's going to make you tougher than an individual sport? Because in wrestling, I can remember we wrestled a lot of matches. A kid would come off and say, Coach, the official screwed me on that one. I said, wait a minute. We've got 35 matches. Use that one. So you got to come up with 34 excuses. But I said, if you go out there and pound his head into the mat, don't worry. You're going to win more, a lot more. And don't worry about the official. If you let it up to the official, they can make mistakes. So consequently, in wrestling went wild at our school. I can't believe it because I was with a gentleman, a boy, 80 years old yesterday, who wrestled for me. 126 pounder, played nose man and guard, and he wrestled for me. And I said to him the first year, because the only schools that really had wrestling at the time were Webster and Spencerport. So, and I said to this young gentleman, Joe DeFelice, I said, Joe, look at over there. In the lineup, the ones that won and are wrestling in a section I don't see any Italians over there. Oh, Well, he says, there's a couple. I said, oh, okay, okay. The next year he comes up to me, and I think we had 8 in the finals. He says,
Oh,
hey,
really?
coach, a
Now
lot
we
of
got some
Italians
Italian
over
boys
there.
out
So,
There you go.
and it paid off. I know that.
Now, I might add this: Coach Quinn did encourage multi-sport athletes, but if football season ended, it might be, you might make a pretty good 165 pounder. You thought about it, Coach? No, I'm a hoopster. Yeah, okay.
Let me add one more thing, to go along, because I knew I had to keep bringing new things in order to compete, because I knew I was getting outnumbered more every year. So at the end of wrestling, of course, I'd have spring weightlifting. And of course, the baseball players would say, "Well, I'm going to play baseball." I said, "Yeah, we're going to lift weights at 6:30 in the morning, and we'll go to 7:30, and then you go to class, and then you go play baseball." Well, I'm going to do this. Oh, that's fine. We got it all in tune, and it's amazing. I would say 85% of them showed up every day or every other day for weightlifting. We went weightlifting all summer too, because one year, I think maybe the first year, I'm not sure anymore, it was against Brighton. They had a great team. We had a great team. And of course, our kids would work out in the summertime. And they had to play Barry Tuttle's group, and it was always very successful. And it was in the high school auditorium. And of course, we were working out on the field right there. And uh, I had a couple of kids. This Tony Zito, who was a tough kid. He was big for me. And then we had a couple others, and they looked, because of being Italian, they looked like they could have been coaches. So I'm away on a campground someplace for a week. I come back, and my high school principal, he's at my in my driveway, 10 o'clock at night. I said, "Oh, what's wrong?" He said, "Well, Mr. Olburn, our superintendent, he, I think he was ahead of not Section 5, but the state organization." He says, "He got a call from Brighton and said that we're practicing illegally." And I said, "Oh, we're not practicing illegally." He says, "Well, you got coaches out there and everything." So, of course, I had to go around a while because Brighton was already talking about a forfeit, and that was our first game. And of course, one thing led to another, and we finally worked it out. And of course, we did beat them. In the last play of the game, we ran a belly series to, I think, Tony Zito, or no, Turi, and ran in for a touchdown. And of course, we beat them, but that they never let it go. They always said we cheated. And hey, we didn't cheat, but we won. That was the main thing.
Well, what advice would both of you give to new head coaches, new assistant coaches that are getting involved in the game, between both their experiences? The role of the head coach, the role of the assistant coach in your programs.
Well, we talked a little bit on the way over about new teachers, new coaches starting out, and it's pretty easy now to learn the X's and O's. You can go on YouTube, you can go anywhere and find a play that might work for you. But the one trait I think that we need is new coaches, head coaches, or teachers. Coaching is teaching. Is you got to have courage. You have to have some convictions, stand by them. You're going to get pushback, but you have to have courage to do what you think is right. Doesn't mean you're out abusing kids or breaking rules and so on and so forth, but you can't be afraid to do something that you think's right.
Mm-hmm. Just stick by your guns.
Got to.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's getting harder and harder
Yeah.
because everybody has a thought and everybody has an opinion, and we've allowed that to happen now. And I think coaches, teachers have lost some of their autonomy, and it's too bad.
What about the role of the assistant? Coming into a program.
My experience with assistants, being an assistant and then having is you got to let them coach. If they need to be competent, they need to coach within your system, but let them coach. And if they have ideas, let them, foster those ideas. Don't just I'm the boss kind
Yeah.
of thing. That doesn't work. People want to coach.
And Coach Quinn, what advice could you give to new head coaches that are getting into the sport?
Well, to go back a few centuries, uh, to me, you got to be dedicated. You got to somehow get the kids to be dedicated for what they're doing, whether it be football in this case or anything else. And you got to have a faith, belief that you can do things. And that was the biggest thing. And I know nowadays it's much tougher, and you got to, well, let's say, do it a little differently politically, but there's ways of getting it done, but not as easy as it was when I was coaching. I mean, there's very little discipline in many homes, and consequently that comes into the schools too, and into sports, and it's too bad. But I think my biggest thing when I think over, and of course when I was coaching, I wanted to win everything. And when I think back and I get some of these letters, even after 90 years, some of the guys that were least productive, uh, they said, "Coach, what a mistake I made. I wish I'd listened to you." And these were people that, I had to toe the line with and say, "Hey, you're the better player, but you're going to sit out today." And that's what you have to do. And but I think I was, or we were, as coaches, pretty confident, and we know from these letters that we help to build better people.
Just piggybacking on that, both of you as head coaches, you had to put together coaching staffs, and some of the things you were looking for in your assistants that were working with you. And you look at some of the teams now that the coaching staffs are much bigger. I mean, where maybe at one time you had one or two assistants, some of these staffs have 10 assistants on the varsity now.
Well, I know in our school, my most of my years, there were three of us, and one was a gentleman, Ron Rucker, who played at the same high school I did, but 10 years after me, so I didn't know him until he got to our school. And another player was Sam Morbido, who he played for me. He played for me for 3 years, went on to Ithaca, came back, and played and coached for me. And they believed the way, and they did their own game part, and I just think that they were willing to work for nothing, because when you did weight programs and things like that, there wasn't any pay for that. And starting off, I made a rip-roaring 200 for football and 200 for wrestling and 200 for baseball, so I was a very wealthy man.
Right. And Coach Lanning, when you were selecting your coaching staff, what were some of the things you were looking for in your assistants? And
Yeah. When I started at Fairport as the head coach, I inherited a staff that was top notch. Tony Marola was the DC. Mike Driscoll was the OC. I oversaw what was going on and had input, obviously, on both sides of the ball. And we might have a volunteer. Later on, after Tony retired, Mike stayed with it a while. I was looking for, loyalty to the program. A lot of times, if it was a younger coach, does he aspire to be a head coach later? Because there's some drive there.
Yep.
And that was not a bad thing.
Yep.
If it was an older guy, somebody who could build a relationship with players, because that's really what it's about when you get down to it. Get them to play over their head. Coach was the maestro at that, getting guys to play beyond their ability, to reach their potential. That was no secret that he could get that done. So there you go.
So I'll go back to coaching. One quick thing I forgot to mention is, of course, I had three on the varsity, count myself, and then I had two on the JVs, a freshman, And when it came game time, because we've always practiced JV and varsity together because we didn't have oodles and noodles of people. And when it came JV game on a Friday, I'd say to my two assistants, Sam and Ron, "You got the JVs. You're going to Newark today." "Oh, yeah? Who we got?" "Well, let me look at the names here." And they'd be off coaching at Newark. And next week, somebody else. But, I mean, it really made for really love or hatred because you were with these guys all the time and you were getting your point across. And that helped.
That's great. I have one last question, and I guess I wanted to ask you both. Now that you are and Coach Lanning, your coaching career is coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with yourself? And the same question, Coach Quinn, what have you been doing with yourself since retirement from everything?
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with myself in the fall. I probably will attend some games. I'm available as a resource if anybody needs one. I still like to get my own workouts and stay busy that way, try to stay as fit as I can. I still work 3 days a week at Fairport. And I have grandkids that are playing sports, so I'll follow them around a little bit.
And Coach Quinn?
Well, play a lot of golf.
That's what I heard.
However, I've been thinking the last couple of years, whenever I play with my group or other groups, I don't see many 90-year-olds. So I go each year in the beginning for a couple of weeks to find out if I can still swing a club and still play the game. And I hope I can because it gives me a lot of good times and with friends of mine and something I love to do.
Coach, if you ever need a caddy, let me know.
He's available. He's available now.
Now, one thing I like to say is Coach Lanning, Paul and I in the fall, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, that, we'll call each other like on a Monday, and then we'll say, okay, we got these games coming up. And then if we find a game that we're interested in, we go watch it. And the good part is, if it's a good game, we stay. If it's a blowout, we get in the car and go home.
There you go.
We don't have, like Paul would say, we don't have a dog in the fight.
Right. And if it started raining real hard, those were the ones that we'd catch the score a little later.
That's where varsity media comes into play. We'll come back here and watch varsity media.
Well, for our games, you could have to travel quite a ways because some of these places,
Yes.
if I had to go to Bath and I'm going to play, I'm afraid if I lost the game, there wouldn't be any players alive when I got home.
A long bus ride.
Now, one thing I'd like to say to people out there that, like I said, I was involved with Fairport ER with my dad being at Fairport. And the thing that made it the rivalry that it was this man here and Coach Santini. Just their drive, just their passion for football, how they were with kids, and like we were saying, it was making them into men. It was more than just football, and just how they played. When the Fairport ER kids played, I'm telling you, it was just kids after the game that lost, they were in tears, because it meant that much to them, and that's how football is meant to be played. And Coach Quinn and Coach Santini, Coach Lanning, they brought that out of the kids, and we don't see that too much around here anymore. And I sure do miss it.
Well, let me say one thing. Of course, the Fairport ER game, big crowds. And, of course, the normal thing was to maybe have 3 people, a ticket taker and a seller and one supervisor until Dave Lanning took over in Fairport. And, of course, he was really security-minded, and we never had a fight or anything like that, even on the field. We never, and we had big crowds. But Dave was good at that, and, of course, when they came over to our school, we weren't going to pay for those extra people, so he would pay for them, and they come over and work in our place.
Nice. Nice. Coach, do you have anything? You were talking earlier about you had some stuff jotted down, or
Just one thing here, just to show you the rivalry, the Little Brown Bag rivalry. of all the games that were played, ER won 26 times,
Okay.
Fairport won 22 times, and there were 5 ties.
Mm.
So it was, and those were scoreless
Very
ties.
competitive,
Yeah.
So it was very competitive through the years. And those last, if it had kept going, Fairport would have won some more games, and
Mhm.
that's just the way it was going.
Yeah.
But that's what it was through the years, from 39 to 87.
Okay. Wow.
Where is the brown jug now?
Well, it depends who you talk to.
Uh-oh.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Lanning was a nice gentleman, a nice AD at
Dave
Fairport.
Martins.
I mean, Dave Martins. And he decided to make one for both of us. And of course, he didn't say who's got the real one, but since they won the last game, I would assume they got the real one. But that's okay.
That's awesome. All right. Right now, I have to go put my glasses on for this part. We're just, just about wrapped up here a little bit. I just want to let people know that, I just had to say thank you very, very much.
Thank you both. Yes.
Yeah. When we were putting this together, this little podcast thing, this day with you two were like they were like one or two right on the top of the list. I mean, like I said, it meant so much to my life. I know it was your lives. A lot of people out there, the Fairport ER thing was just something to hold, and I was letting people know when Paul and I would go to Ohio. We were talking earlier. We go down to Massillon, and that's just out of this world type of stuff. But I would let the people know down there in Massillon. I said we used to have a rivalry up in where we were from that kind of compares, and the Fairport ER game is the closest thing around here that I can compare to what's going on down there. It's just awesome people, and when that Saturday game was played, it was just, for that 2 hours or 2.5 hours, that was, they were rivals, but like you said, as far as anything afterwards or, it kind of, people, all right, we won it or we lost it, or, we'll be back next year,
Yeah.
Win or lose or tie. So that was something that was really special. In what's going on now is our next episode, we're going to have it's going to be our last episode with Rivals. We're going to have Danny Fichter in, the head coach at at Irondequoit High School. And the thing about that is they're going to open up this year. Their first game is home against Eastridge, which is their rival. So we're going to have Danny come in. We're going to talk about that, the rivalry. And that's going to be Paul and I either first or second. We might try to do like a test run. But we're going to go live. And we're going to do a half hour, 40 minutes before the game, type of pregame type of thing. And halftime, talk to the coaches. And then after the game, have a post game. And it's all going to be live. And like I said, I'm always looking to make our channel grow, get more people involved, and just try to make it grow. Along those lines, down in the left, or your right-hand corner, there'll be a subscribe button. So if you see the subscribe button, you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. It makes our channel grow, lets us know, people are enjoying it. And after that, we just have our sponsors, and I'm not going to go through them today, but they're all at the end, the credits at the end. So I'm just about done.
Okay.
Paul, you good? Coaches, you good?
We're all good.
Now, one thing that we didn't talk about back in the war room is at the end of our show, we're just going to now say 1, 2, 3, and we all turn and point at the camera and say, "Keeping it real, Section 5 football." Okay?
That's how we close it out.
That's how we close it out. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Keeping it real, Section 5 football.
Good night. Have a great night.